Hi, this is Simon from Tokyo Productions and welcome to another tutorial for Motion 5. And today we're going to be looking at making this cosmic energy orb scene. So let's dive in and get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to come over to my library and my generators, and I want to grab clouds and I'll apply that. F4 to come to its controls, to open the gradient. I'm going to set this right hand colour here to something like that, just to get us started. Possibly darken it down a bit. Then I'm going to come down to method here and I'm going to select turbulent. This gives me a slightly more interesting pattern. Command 2 for the library, filters. I'm going to select distortion. And I'm going to grab underwater and apply it to the clouds. That's the one right at the bottom down there. And then I'm going to select polar and I'm going to apply that above underwater. Let me just come back to my clouds very quickly, F4. And I want to turn the speed down to nothing. And then let's just come to the underwater filter here. Let's first of all set the size to 1, the speed down to 0.2, the refraction all the way up to 200, and we'll set a mix value of 50% so we get a nice blended result. And I want to come back to my library, command 2, and just add one more thing, because you can probably see that right here at the top where we've applied this polar filter, it's made a join, because what the polar does is it basically bends it round into a circle, but obviously the circle needs to join up, so we need to just fix that little join there. So I'm going to come to blur and I'm going to select a radial blur and I'll apply it above polar, and F3 for the inspector. We just need a very small amount. Let's go for a value of 10. Yeah, maybe up to 20. I don't know, just go crazy. Next I'm going to come to this group here at the top, come back to the library, command 2, filters, distortion, and I'm going to look for sphere and I'm going to apply it to that group at the top there. And that turns everything into a sphere, just like that. Next I'm going to take my clouds and I'm going to duplicate them, so that's command D. F1 to come to its blend mode and I'm going to set that to linear dodge. And then I want to hit Alt or Option B and I want to draw a mask for this new clouds layer. So I'm going to start at the bottom here, I'm going to come up to about there, come down to here, up to here, down to there, and across, just like that. And because I'm not using that joined up bit there at the top, I'm going to delete the radial blur filter from this second copy. And let me just adjust that mask a little bit. Turn on the overlays, tab through to the edit points. I'm just going to make that smooth there. Just adjust that a little bit. Possibly bring that in a little bit more. Don't want it to go all the way to the edges. Something like that is pretty good. I'm going to take the clouds itself and I'm just going to apply a very slight rotation so we've got a different result. Call it 15 degrees. And I might just come back to the colour here and let's just brighten up that colour by bringing it a bit more into the centre. So we've got that. Let's come back to our mask and let's just feather that. Let's have a value of 75 so that's nice and smooth. Turn off the overlays, that's command /. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it, that's command D, F1 for its transform here, and let's set a rotation of 195, and that's brought it up to the top there. What I might do in this instance, just to give us something slightly different, is to change the horizontal and vertical scale of that clouds generator, so 24 and 24. And now I've got that result. Next I'm going to take that latest one, command D, and I'm going to change the colour of it. So I'm going to click on that tab there, change the colour to a nice vibrant red, and possibly bring up the level a bit like that. Let's change this horizontal and vertical scale again. Let's go for 20 and 20. Just break that up a bit. And let's also just adjust that Bezier mask. So Command / to turn on the overlays, and let's tab through. Just want this slightly more on the edges, just a slightly different shape, like that. Will do nicely. And then again, I'm going to take that layer, duplicate it, Command D, Properties, set a rotation of 15. Brings that down to the bottom as well. So now you can see we've started to build up that base layer. Okay, let's tidy things up by calling this group base. And I think I want a little bit more brightness in this. So I'm going to take one of those blue layers, so that's the third one up, and I'm going to duplicate that, Command D. And let's again just reduce that horizontal and vertical scale, and take the colour here. Let's just crank the brightness up till we've got something like that. Come to the mask and turn on the overlays, tabbing through till we get to edit points. I just want this much more on the edge, so I'm going to adjust that centre Bezier like that, bring up this corner here. I want to try and keep these edges here a little bit clean of anything, not too bright. Something like that should do me. Maybe just bring that in a little bit. Okay, and let's close that colour thing there. Let's take this layer and again let's duplicate it, Command D, F1 for its transform, and let's set that rotation back to 15 so we've got it on the bottom as well. F4 again for the generator. Let's change this again. Why not go for 12? And actually, let's 12 and 16. Let's go crazy. Let's just brighten this one up even more. Bring that in to there. So the next thing I want to do is make a mask that's going to mask this entire project and leave us just with this center circle. And it'll become obvious why in a little bit. So I'm going to make a new group, Command-Shift-N. I'm going to hit Command-2 to come to the library. I'm going to look for generators and color solid, and I'm going to apply that to that group and hit F4 so I can change the generator color. Click on the swatch, bring that down to black. I'm going to hit F1 to come to the properties, blend mode, and I'm going to set that to stencil alpha. Then I'm going to hit Alt or Option C to bring up the circle mask tool. I'm going to hold down the Shift and Option key, and from the center I'm going to drag out a circle that's roughly the same size as my sphere. I'm going to come over here to the circle mask transform, and I'm going to hit the reset button so it's centered up. And then let's just use the scale, just very slowly, just bring it down till it's encroaching on the sphere itself. F4 to come to the mask controls here, and let's just feather it in by -2 pixels. That'll just give us a slightly softer edge. Okay, so let's just call that group mask, and let's make another group, Command-Shift-N. And this group we're going to call refraction. And that's because this, although it's round and it's sort of bending towards the edges, it just doesn't really look like a 3D sphere at all just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some elements that will increase the 3D look. So first of all, I'm going to hit C for the circle tool and F7 to bring up the HUD. I want to deselect fill and I want to select outline, and let's have something like that, nice and dark. Let's set the width to about 75, something like that. And let's hold down the Shift and Option key and drag out a circle that's roughly the same size as the sphere. And let's center it up. And what I want to do is I want to turn on the overlays, Command / Shift S for the transform transform tool, I think it's called. Never remember what that's called. I want to move it over just like that. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that my mask group is right at the top, so it's masking everything else underneath it. So if I hit Shift Command backward square bracket, that will put that at the top. I'm going to come back and select that circle. I'm going to call that dark lower, and I'm going to set its blend mode here to multiply. And I want to come to the library, Command 2, filters, blur, and I want to select Gaussian blur, and I will apply that. F3 for the inspector, and let's set an amount of 50. Then I'm going to duplicate that, Command D, and again turn on the overlays. And what I want to do is hit F3 for the transform here, and I want to scale it up. And I'm going to scale it to 122%. And then I'm going to just drag it down till it's starting to darken that top left edge, like that, just bringing that in there. I'm going to call that dark upper, and I'm going to duplicate it, Command D. I'm going to change the outline color to something much brighter, bring it right up here somewhere, and then I'm going to hit F1 for its blend mode and set that to screen. And what I want to do is I want to make this brighten up this bottom right hand corner, so I'm going to move it up till we're getting some brightening on the... don't know why I can't do this. I find it quite hard to intuitively do that. So something like that, brightening up that bottom right hand corner. So I'm going to call this one light lower, and I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, and call it light upper. F1 for its transform here. Let's set the scale to 115. And this one I want to bring in down, 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 bring it down somewhere like that. And I want to move this layer down to the bottom of this stack. So I'm going to hit Shift Command forward square bracket, and that'll move it down below the other layers. And okay, not looking quite terribly promising yet, but it will. Let's close up that base group and hide it. And now we've got something like that. I think the color I've chosen for this dark element is a bit too vibrant, so I'm going to Command select both of those, click on the color, and let's just reduce the saturation, bring it down to somewhere like that, and probably reduce the brightness a bit. So we've got something like that. And these light colors, that light upper and lower, let's again Command select those, so they're both selected. Click on that color. Let's just have a bit more color in there, I think. Something a bit more like that, but a little bit darker. Next, what I want to do is I want to come to the library again, come to generators, and I'm going to look for lens flare, and I'm going to bring that in at the top here. Command / to turn on the overlays, and I'm going to come down and select the adjust item tool, and I want to bring this down so it's sitting on that bottom right hand corner there, and then F4 to come to the lens flare controls here. So I want to set an intensity of 4 and a fall off of 8, and let's turn down the ring radius and ring width. We don't want any of those. Also, let's turn down the streak intensity. We have a little bit, but virtually none. I'm going to turn off the overlays by hitting Command / so we can see that a little bit more clearly. And I'm going to come to the outer color here, and let's make that blue, possibly even darker. So we've got something like that. Then I'm going to duplicate that lens flare, Command D, turn on the overlays again. Still got my adjust item tool selected, so I can move the center, and I'm going to move it up to here. And this second lens flare, I'm going to reduce the intensity down to 2 and the fall off to 6. And I want to do one final thing, which is hit the circle tool. Let's hit F7 to bring up the HUD. Let's use a fill color that's sort of somewhere in here, something like that, and I'm going to draw an ellipse just around there. And I'm going to move that down below the two lens flares. So that's Command /bracket twice. And I want to feather that out. So I'm going to set a feather of about 50. I think I might just adjust that color so it's more saturated. F1 for its properties here, blend mode, and set that to multiply. Then I'm going to duplicate that, Command D, and let's just move it across to roughly the same point on the other side. Somewhere like that. And again, I think let's just Command select those two and just increase the saturation. So we've got something like that. And maybe we'll increase their feather probably up to 100. So now we've got our refraction layer. Let's see how that actually works with our base layer. So let's turn our base layer back on again. And you can see that's already looking much more sphere-like. What we need to do is these lens flares, as you can probably see, are making it look very milky or frosted. So we need to fix that. So we'll come to the library, filters, color correction, and we'll look for levels and apply it to, first of all, that top lens flare, F3 for the inspector. What I want to do is just grab the black value and bring it up. And you see that as I do so, it reduces that frostiness and just focuses in that, so it's not fogging the rest of the shot. So let's hold down the Alt key and take that levels and drag it onto the other lens flare. So we've got something like the same result. In this instance, I think I might just back it off just a little bit, somewhere like that. Okay, so now let's make the plasma energy material that's filling out the center of the orb. Let's first of all close up mask, let's close up refraction, and we'll make a new group, Command-Shift-N, and we'll call this core. And we'll hit Command-2 to come to the library, generators, and we'll look for caustics and bring it into that new group. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is come over to the library and select filters, distortion, and let's grab our two favorite filters, which are underwater and polar. So that's me command clicking them to select them both, and I'll drag them onto caustics. Let's come to the caustics itself, F4 for its controls, and I just want to reduce the size to 0.1 and the speed to 0.1, and the refraction I'll turn up to 200. And I'll also set the brightness to be 100, so it's nice and bright. And I'll come here and I'll set the color to be something like that. Then I'll hit Alt-C for the circular mask tool, and holding down the Shift and Alt key, I'll drag a mask out from the center till I get something like that. Then I'm going to come to the mask feather over here and set that to -75. Let's now come to our filters, and let's just adjust the underwater filter so we've got a size of 1 and a speed of 0.1 and a refraction of 200. And then let's set a mix value of 50. And this gives us this really nice complex look. Let me just solo that core group so we can see how that plays. You can see that's full of kind of interesting energy. Next, I want to take my caustics layer, come over to its blend mode and set that to screen. And then I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, and make a very slight adjustment to its speed here, 0.11, just so it's a little bit more lively. And I'll take that circular mask, turn on the overlays, Command /, and holding down the Shift and Alt key, just reduce the size of that mask a little bit. And then I'll select the caustics itself. I'm just going to move it over a little bit, like that, to the side. And let's come to its color, and let's make that just slightly different in color, like that. And then I'm going to duplicate it again, Command D, and we'll do the same thing of just offsetting it so it's filling in the space a bit more. So So now we've got a much more elaborate look here. Don't want to overdo it. I think that's probably good. Let's rotate it as well, so it's not the same. So 45 degrees on that, and maybe the previous one, let's go for -45, just to fool the eye a bit more. Then what we're going to do is come to the library, Command 2, Generators, and I'm going to look for Clouds, and I'm going to bring that in at the top of that core group. And let's hit F4 for its controls here. I want to reduce the horizontal scale to 24 and the vertical scale also to 24. And let's bring the speed down to 0.1. And then I want to twirl open the gradient, click on the right-hand color swatch, and let's again make that something like that. Let's grab the polar and underwater filters. So that's Command clicking them both, and holding down the Alt key, I'm going to copy them to the clouds. Now we've got a rather obvious seam here again, so let's come back to the library, Command 2, Filters, Blur, and I'm going to grab Radial Blur and I'm going to drag it in above everything else. Come to the inspector, F3, let's reduce that amount down to 20. Let's also steal that circle mask from the original Caustics layer down at the bottom there. So again, holding down the Alt key, I'm going to drag that onto Clouds. I'm going to come to the Clouds blend mode here and set that to linear dodge. And you can see how that's really beefed everything up quite nicely. I'm going to take that circle mask and turn on the overlays, Command /, again hold down the Alt and Shift key, Shift and Alt I should say, and just reduce the size of that down just a bit, and again come to the mask properties, F4. I think I'll go for an even greater feather of -100, just so that's a bit softer. And I'll take that same clouds layer and duplicate it, so that's Command D, and you can see how that, with that linear dodge, that's really helped to brighten that up quite a bit. Again, let's turn on the overlays and just move it off to the side a little bit so they're not lined up, and let's also use the handle to rotate it like that. And we could go crazy and just add one more, so Command D. You can see how that's, each one we add is really brightening it up quite considerably. So let's move that to the top a bit. I actually want to move these so they're more sort of vertically aligned like that. It's really up to you. This is just giving you the basics of the design, but I think that's really not looking too bad. We want to add one final thing to give it a hot center, and that's to come to the library, Command 2, look for our generators, and we will introduce a lens flare. Move it to the top of that group. So F4 for its controls. Let's turn down the streak intensity and the ring radius and width, because we don't want those. And let's turn the glow fall off down to 0. Okay, so let's close down this core group, and let's move this mask group to the top, so that's Command Shift backward square bracket. Wish they'd make that shortcut a little bit easier to describe. So now we've got our hot, lively core, we also need to have some activity around the edges that's a little bit more lively. So I'm going to make a new group, Command Shift N, and this group I'm going to call Caustics. And I'm going to come to the library, Command 2, look for generators, and unsurprisingly I'm going to drag Caustics into my new group here. And we're just going to move that mask group to the top, so that's Command Shift backward square bracket. Let's select this Caustics and hit F4 to come to its controls. We're going to set a size of 0.2 and a speed of 0.05. And I'd like to set the refraction down to 100. Color, let's add some blue in there. Then I want to add a filter to that, so Command 2 for the library, filters, distortion, and again it's the familiar polar filter, which will wrap it around in a circle. I want to add a Bezier image mask, so that's Alt-B, and then I'm going to make a mask that looks a bit like this. So click down the bottom here, up here, click in the middle, dragging as I go, click up here, click down there, and close it on up. Then I'm going to hit F4, and let's feather this in by -75 again. I think I'm going to turn on the overlays command /, select the caustics, and just rotate it a bit so we've got it more on that bottom right hand edge, like so. Then I'm going to take that and duplicate it, so command D, and again let's rotate it using the handle this time, be all funky and interactive, and let's bring it around to about there. And then I want to duplicate it again, command D, and I just want to reduce the size of this new one, so 0.1, like so. Gives us a little bit more detail on the edge. And again let's duplicate that, and again using the rotation handle we'll rotate it so it's more in the bottom right. I just want to add an extra ingredient. Come over to the library, command 2, and I want to look for generators cellular, and I'm going to bring that in at the top of that group. F4 for its controls. So let's first of all set the speed down to 0.1, don't want this to move too fast, and then we'll twirl open the gradient, click on the right hand colour tab, and again set it to our blue, like that. Then we'll hit F1 to come to its blend mode, and we'll set that to add, just so it looks a bit more interesting. We can actually see everything else. Then I'm going to take one of these Bezier masks. Let me take that bottom one actually, so I know where that is. Hold down the Alt key and drag it onto the cellular to make a copy. And I'm going to duplicate that and turn on the overlays. Let's just rotate it top left. There we go, turn off the overlays, command /. And now we want to add some filters to this group. So let's come to the library, command 2, filters. Let's first of all look for our old friends underwater, and holding down the command key, let's also look for sphere. Bring those two in and add them to that caustics group. And now something quite strange has gone on, and that's because we need to remember that applying anything to a group will change its blend mode from pass through to normal. So let's set this group to add. See how that looks. Let's come to our underwater filter, so there are 3 for the controls, and let's set the size down to 0.2, and the speed we'll have as 0.1, and the refraction we will set to 50, don't want too much, and the mix we'll set to 75. Then let's come back to the library, command 2, filters, color correction. I want to grab a levels and add it to the top of that group, and hit F3 to come to the controls here. I'm going to select blue instead of RGB. I'm going to grab the white value and drag it down a bit, just so we get brighter, punchier blue. Okay, so let's close down this caustics group, and let's do a bit of rearranging of our layers. So I'm going to move refraction above caustics, so that's command /, and then I want to move the core up above refraction, so that's command /, twice, and we're starting to get a slightly better result. Okay, and there's another layer that we need to add, and that's some particles. So let's make a new group, command N, and we'll call this particles. And for convenience, we'll come over to the library, command 2, look for particle emitters, and under pyro we're going to select blurry sparks and bring that into that particles group. F1 for its blend mode here, and let's set that to add. Let's hit F4 for the emitter controls here. Let's set the birth rate to 75. The initial number we'll set to 50. The life we'll set to 1. Life randomness to 5. And we can leave those others as they are, maybe increase the speed randomness up to 200. And let's come down here to this scale, and we want to set that to 25%, and we'll also have a 25% scale randomness. Let's solo that particles layer by hitting Ctrl S, and we can see what's happening. Turn off the overlays command /. They're all falling downwards. Don't want that, so let's come to the particle cell here, and you'll see that that comes complete with scale over life and gravity. So let's just delete both of those, and then the particle's not falling down anymore. Let's now twirl open the color over life gradient here, and we're going to select this second tab from the left, click on its color swatch, and let's make that blue. And let's just even out these two middle tabs like that. And I'm going to come down to color repetitions here, and I'm going to set that value to 3. And you'll see what that does. The color repetitions gives me that nice sparkling effect as they cycle through these colors 3 times during the course of their life. Let's hit Ctrl Shift S, which brings everything else back and unsolos that layer. Those particles are sitting in the midst of everything. Let's actually just increase their number. Let's just up the life to 4, and then they'll come all the way to the edge. So let's close this group down, and let's move it down behind refraction. So that's command / twice. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done, so let's take a look at a render of this. I've been tweaking a lot of the parameters as I go just to try and get a better result. Really, a lot of it depends on adjusting some of the colours and the density of various elements, positioning, just till you get something that you like the look of. So that's pretty much the end of part 1. In part 2 we'll be looking at the fly-through, which will complete the scene. So I hope that's been interesting. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and hope to see you again for part 2.